I'd like to now assemble the panel, help you folks who have been writing down some questions or thinking about them. And I'd like to invite Kevin to come back up, but I'd also like to invite John Garcia. He's a systems consultant, lifecycle services for Yokogawa. And please join me in welcoming John.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks. Again, if you have any questions, we have a gentleman from ARC that would be glad to give you the microphone. All right. So, to start with, I have a question to kind of get it going. And since John didn't have the benefit of presenting where he's coming from, I wanted to. I heard something Kevin said. I wanted to ask John his point. And I detected what Kevin said was that the older version of your system worked in parallel with the newer version. Is this a common thing? Is this something that you...
Yeah, the system does work with the older versions. For example, the system at Solway was installed in 1998. It used a type of I/O that is since not produced or you can't expand anymore, but the latest software does support the old systems. And I think he mentioned that we can technically talk to the Centum made in 1975. I don't know if any application is doing that, but we do support the compatibility of our older hardware with our latest software.
Okay. So in conversion projects, when you're upgrading, this is a typical activity you do?
Yes, there's quite a few systems out there that I've seen where we're talking with our previous versions of Centum also.
All right, very good, very good. Okay. Any questions out there for the panel? Here's one right here. Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, Dick. This is Samir. The question is actually just for you. There was a slide you presented where you said the cost of automation and control system is 2-3%, and the business impact is probably about 10-15%. Are there 3-4 big things from a business impact which can be quantified, or buckets?
Are there big things?
Big buckets, though at 15%.
Yeah.
What are the business impacts which we can quantify?
Well, I wish there was more definitive ways to quantify those things, because it really depends on your plant and how your plant is running and how your business is operating. So for some companies who are, let's say, poorly automated, that amount of benefit can be huge if you put a good system in that can actually close the gap. Things like one of the quantifiable things is unscheduled downtime. You know, if you can reduce that number just a few percent, it can be huge in terms of the benefits. Or improper, I should say, off-spec material that you make. Those can be huge. So it really depends, quite honestly, on the type of automation and facility you had before. But the reason why I say I wish it would be more quantifiable, we had a session yesterday at 2, in which we talked about it's great if you can identify the value of your system as it's installed, and the value you can create if you move to these newer systems, because then you can justify it a lot easier. That's always a challenge, but good question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I have a question for Aaron. I jotted something down here. You mentioned the source of truth, and you talked about the impact on safety. Can you, coming from the higher level of safety issues, can you speak of the pain that would be an owner-operator that could possibly be, maybe an owner-operator struggling with the pain that might be benefited with regard to the sources of truth and with regard to improving automation. Can you identify anything there?
So we seem to blow up a lot of facilities. I think that's one of our issues on pain points. And it comes down to, in my world, we want to make sure we have the right critical information at its purest form in the right tool that's accessible by anybody in the operations world, so that they're, for example, not switching off and on the right or wrong breaker. They're not a lot of these facilities they're sill rated. There's ramifications of things that go wrong. But yes, it's making sure that when, for example, we just started up another facility in northern Alberta, and it's in early stages of producing oil, but we're still as building right now, and we're as building in phases, and we're trying to get everything to the point so that the operations is not unsafe, right? We want to make sure that our P&IDs, our critical information, our instrumentation is all there, it's all real, so that if there was anything that we had to take down or that we had some problems within production, we can address those as soon as we can.
Excellent.
And in automation, it's pretty important, isn't it? So.
Yeah, we talk about in our model that we call CPAS, Collaborative Process Automation System, we talk about single version of the truth, which is so important, that you got to have a true representation of what's really going on right now. Otherwise, you end up with some unsafe operations.
Right. Like we always say, as soon as you take something out of a system and you have a piece of paper, it's out of date,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not real.
It's not
so we
real
want to
anymore.
make sure our source of truth is accurate.
Excellent. So that expands beyond just the operator at a single console to across the board.
Across the entire plant. That's
Great,
right.
great. Kevin, let me ask you kind of a question that's related to that. Yeah, you talked about having to bring new operator stations up, and how did the plant react to this? Did they resist this, or did they come around?
Well, naturally, you get a little resistance to any change, but it actually worked really, really well. We had opportunities to look at computer-based training, but with 60 to 80 operators, just really wasn't economical with the skill level that they had already. They have a high skill level, and we just came up with this idea that we are going to have time between changing each station out. So we put one in and gave them the opportunity to see both at once. And when I found out that option was available, that we can run both versions at the same time, why not? It was a great opportunity to give them the before and after look.
Yeah.
And it worked out really, really well.
It gave them a little sense of comfort that they could see, at the moment, they could see
Yeah,
how they've always done it. So they didn't
if they had an urgent situation, they didn't have to try and find it on the new system. They could always revert back to the old one and take care of it, and then kind of compare the two.
Hopefully none of them said, I want the XT version, I don't want the new one.
Well, you always get a few of those.
You get a few of those kind of people. Is there a question out here? Okay. While you're getting him, let me just do one quick follow-up. The question I had is that have you seen any improvements regarding things like what Aaron was talking about in terms of safety improvements or decision improvements since the new system is in place? Are people making better decisions on the console?
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think they are. They have more. The data's quicker and easier to get to that they need.
Okay.
Especially with some of the features in the new upgrade to where
Okay.
they can flip between screens.
Okay.
It used to be they'd have to go to the keyboard and find a different screen to look at in a different one. But now it's just they can have whatever trouble area they have going on, and they can have multiple screens up and they can respond to those.
Yeah. I know it's sometimes hard to quantify improvements like that, that the operators have more information, therefore they make fewer mistakes. Mm-hmm. So all it takes is one big mistake to justify doing it, but then it's too late. So
I think we still struggle with alarm management on my site. That because of our original conversion over to a DCS system, we just gave them every alarm they could imagine, so we fight through that, and we're working through it and getting better every day.
Yeah, it's a process. We had someone speaking about alarm management a couple of forums ago, and his analogy was alarm management is not a project, it's a process. It's a continuous process. You have to keep at it, because with the digital systems, you'll have a new alarm in there, and you didn't even know somebody put it in.
Yeah, and
So
we have wonderful system tools that help us identify recurring alarms in 7 different scenarios, and so we have those tools to help us, and we're actually getting better every day.
Excellent.
You know what, Dick, one of the things that we're doing as well, a lot of our facilities, I'm going to just use Canada as an example, or we can say the Gulf of Mexico is another one, but so I'm based in Calgary, and a lot of our engineers are based in Calgary. Our plants are 12 hours away for driving, 14 hours away. It's basically fly in, fly out. What we're starting to do, that's even adding a lot of value when it comes to, especially with alarm management, is we're creating a remote control room in Calgary that is obviously speaking back to real time into the facilities. They're doing the same thing in the Gulf of Mexico, where we have a remote control room. And one of the areas that we really have found that has changed a lot of an operator's day is the alarm management program is coming back to the remote control room. So that operator is taking all of those alarms and doing the root cause analysis. So when we're talking hundreds and hundreds of alarms that are, a lot of them are meaningless, the person back in the remote control room is actually looking at all of that. They've got the other engineering for operation. They got all those engineers there to help, and all the automation folks in the cities to actually figure out what that means. That allows the operator to just run the plant.
Yeah.
And the differences that we're seeing and what is real and what isn't is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's you can't even quantify it.
That's, we'll come back to that. That's a very good. We have a gentleman who's been waiting over here. Do you have a question?
Patiently. How are you? Thank you very much for the speakers. Aaron, when you were mentioning before about SAP playing a role as far as being very important to the operators, for your, I guess, the consulting or whatever you do, can you talk about what information you're extrapolating or feeding to and from SAP that helps? It's a couple-part question. I was curious on that side first.
Yeah. So so I kind of stumbled across something a few years back when I started creating the tagging philosophies, which, by the way, is not common in my field, to create a tagging and philosophy for a project. Normally, that's somebody else's job. In doing that, there's two things that I noticed. First of all, we have a lot of parameter restrictions within the DCS syntax. There's so many your tag can only be so many characters long to be unique within that facility, and that includes having an N+1 factor when we're creating the tag for the actual greenfield. What I noticed about that is I could use that as a functional location for SAP. So now when I'm bringing my information over into operations, I can actually also into their environment, and obviously one of their environments is SAP, because we're going to start depreciating the asset as soon as we put it in place, as soon as it's in the field. So that relationship we can start early on, and it actually comes back to managing the asset. That's really what we're doing, right? When we spend $20 billion to create a facility, what do we have to show for it at the end of the day? We've got the asset and we've got the information, right? So we want to make sure that there's a correlation between the two. And that's just something I noticed that worked well, just like having the DCS. The one tagging philosophy that I created several years ago, we broke it 100 times. And you know why? Because instrumentation breaks everything. It was interesting just to try to get this thing to work. But once we did, it was unique, it was robust, and it lasted for 50 years. And that's what matters, right? So there's value there.
Yeah, so it sounds like that correlation between how SAP views the world and how the automation views the world, if you can put them together,
they can talk
it
very
makes
well.
life a lot easier for the humans that have to transition from
Absolutely.
one to
Yeah,
Good.
absolutely.
Good point.
So
Sorry.
the part I was actually more interested in when you mentioned about billing, because you're talking about asset protection, I guess, or making sure you marking a tag to see exactly where the asset is and being able to have that information. What about the billing? Because I guess Conoco or any other people, I saw your video last year about measuring 7 times and cutting once, being very efficient. How does that play in there? Because I was curious about the SAP integration to the machine or to the actual PLC level to SAP.
Yeah, so it ties again back to the depreciation of the asset and how we run our packaging and how we look at our work packages and our MOCs and all of that. It all fits back into that finance system, right? Which is, I know everybody's either saying we should go completely to SAP or we shouldn't go, and we should go into a portal and we should manage our data and our information differently. There's always that debate back and forth, but I think If we can integrate SAP into our design tools, which eventually go into operations, there is a correlation there between the two. If that makes any sense.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Let me ask John and Kelly kind of an associated question. I don't know how much of the integration with business systems were involved in your project. Was there anything to deal with that in your integration with the business systems, or was that
With the business side?
yeah, with the business side?
No, not really.
Not in this step
There's
now.
actually none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, how often do you see?
Yes, some of the majors, they've connected like to SAP through our asset management systems to get, work orders and things issued that way.
Okay.
So that's on the business side connection from
Yeah.
the control system, yeah.
Yeah.
One big thing we're doing right now in the middle of is getting all of we've always had our mechanical equipment into SAP.
Yeah.
We've actually created functional locations based on tag names for all of our instrumentation. All of our
Okay.
instrumentation loops in SAP too. And so we're getting all that in there. They'll have all the manuals, all the documents that the techs need to go grab and go to work
Excellent.
on those instruments.
Excellent. So they're the names are common, or the names are similar?
The tag names are all,
Yeah.
individual.
Wonderful. Yeah, I've heard horror stories about, whether it's SAP or whatever the source of the maintenance system is. They have totally different nomenclature, so the translation is very difficult if you do it that way. But
Yeah,
sounds like you're ahead of it.
classification is a good
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
Where they're categorizing things incorrectly, and that's not good either.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions out here? Okay. I have another question. Let me go to. Let's see. I'll ask Kevin again. It seems like the backward compatibility from your initial Yokogawa installation to your new one, that seemed to help you. Was it important?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I don't know if, this time it was that important, but it's something I definitely want to look at in the future. I want to make, see what's compatible. I mean, we need to know those things before we move forward, what's backward compatible, but it's a really, really important issue.
Yeah. I know it's extremely hard for, all of the automation suppliers out there to imagine what their system's going to look like 10 years from now. But you're operating a plant that may have something that's going to last 10, 12, 20 years. And
Yeah, because right now my plant consists of 1990s technology. It also consists of 2010s technology, and they're all working together perfectly.
yeah, so it's a mixture.
Yeah.
Yeah. John, any
No,
comment?
yeah, we support the coexistence of versions, different, so you can run XP with Windows 7 machines or Windows servers, and the versions can be separate.
Yeah.
Field controllers can have a separate version, and it's 100% compatible with the. And I know he brought up the graphic utility. We run the graphics and check them against the new aspect ratios, which he had done. So we have some good tools for that.
Excellent. Any questions from the audience? All right, you're going to have to keep listening to my questions then. All right. I won't go into politics, so we'll leave that off the table for now. Okay. Aaron, you mentioned project operational goals. Can you talk a little bit about how those goals related between the operations and between the information management teams and even the business teams? Did they correlate very well? Did the leadership agree with the goals, and how was it interacted?
Yes, so again, the corporation will have their set of operational goals that they're looking for, that they want to work towards. And in a capital project, we set our own goals to a certain extent. So for example, with my team, with information management technology, automation, telecommunications, all of it, we have to really come together, come to an agreement, and get some alignment. So we'll have our own goals, but those goals have to align back to what the corporation is looking for at the end of the day for operations. And it's a lot of hand-holding and a lot of discussions, and we want to make sure that we get alignment going even before. This is where we're talking about putting these strategies in place. That's where it starts. It starts at that level, and getting the buy-in from everybody from the future of operations to the plant manager to the engineering manager that's running the project. So we want to make sure that we align all of those goals together. And it is a lot of work,
Yeah.
but, and we don't always see eye to eye. You know,
Yeah.
what I think is valuable, the operations manager may not see the same
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And we've learned ourselves that aligning the goals and objectives of the stakeholders, the people who have a stake in the outcome,
Yeah.
is so important to do at the very beginning. If you don't do that, then somewhere down the line, one of those stakeholders is going to raise their hand and say, "You forgot about this part."
And that's always what happens with operations, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait a minute, and then that costs millions of dollars to fix.
Right.
And we don't have that in the budget later.
Right.
You know, we only have 30% of the capital
Right.
gross cost to run the plant for 50 years,
Right.
which is, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, questions? Okay. Kevin, I wanted to follow up a little bit on the new operation. So, how long have you been operating now with the new control system?
Since May of 2014.
Okay, so it's been a while. So you've had a chance to experience what it's like now versus what it was before. What are some of the striking improvements that you've seen, or maybe some things that you still like to have that were better, are better?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you saw in my slideshow there, I had a gray graphic on there. We went from black graphics with yellow or green and red pumps and stuff like that, and a lot of different colors. We spent a lot of time researching what's good for graphics. There's actually some good books out there to read, and we did quite a bit of study, and we decided we wanted to try to convert over to gray graphics, and we've met a lot of resistance on that. We spent probably months just defining graphic standards to do it, and we're still moving forward in that direction, but we have the older operators don't want to see any change, and the millennials, they love those graphics. So, you know, we're running into those kind of concerns, but as far as configuration, it's all pretty much the same. There's some new control blocks that we like, some new functionality there that we didn't have before.
Yeah.
But everything is, it's just running great.
Has it made your team's daily work chores a little easier?
It has, yeah. I mean,
Your boss is not here, right?
No,
Okay.
no, it actually has. We spent a lot of time doing a lot of trouble calls before. They've almost, disappeared because of the new equipment,
Yeah.
and also the way that we laid it out in clean rooms and away from the operators, and it's just made life a lot better. It's the way it should be. It's a lot safer for my guys to work on, and the environment's a lot better.
Yeah. I like the concepts that you talked about in the planning. Was this basically your team that planned to put like the servers below, or
Yes.
was that your contractor that helped you?
On this new installation,
Yeah.
it was everything we designed it and
Beautiful.
laid it out.
It was very clever. Here's a question over here.
Kelly, I have a question for you. I've been in several mines, not in recent years, but in past years, and I was always amazed about how much of the mining operation and the associated mineral processing operation was automated. But I was also amazed that often key operations were siloed, that they might have had a PLC on it or a standalone controller, and they seemed to me they were key bottleneck points for the operations. Have you managed to avoid that kind of a bottleneck, and also do you have a single control room for both the mining and the mineral processing portion of the operation?
No, actually, we have two separate control systems. The mine has their own, and it's an I believe an ABB system. Our mining, it's a lot more brute force. It's not, we don't have, I mean, we're getting more and more and more instrumentation. I'm really proud of our mine for doing more. And I think things have changed over the last 10 years to where they're looking more at this. But you're talking about getting rock out of the ground on a belt, into a bin, and to the surface. And there's not a lot of need for a lot of instrumentation. Sure, we have some really high horsepower equipment underground. but it's nothing like what the surface is. You know, there's a lot more on the surface. Yeah, if they had 2,000 loops underground, I'd be surprised, you know. But it's coming along. It's coming along.
So how about in the processing plant? Still have some island automation there, where you have it all together?
As far as what? I'm sorry.
For control of information. Do you still have any island of automation in your processing plant? Or is it all in the DCS?
Well, it's all pretty much in the DCS. I mean, I'm really concerned, especially after this conference, to find a way to get data around my DCS and into my historian. Because there's a lot of data we could be collecting that we don't, and we see a lot of failures because of the lack of data that we're pulling in. And the only reason is I don't want to tie up my DCS resources for control with just analytics coming in, you know. So I'm really interested to look more into that. But yeah, we control, and you know, we try to set the DCS aside for control.
Yeah. Kevin, I'll make a comment, and this goes to everybody else. Make sure you talk to the folks that are in our showcase there, because they have some solutions for things like using the IIoT paradigm to get information directly off of a machine and, you know, shipping it somewhere. So
Yeah.
here's a question back here.
Yeah,
Please, sir.
I had a question for Kevin. You keep talking about this clean room concept. Are you talking about the server rooms that are clean? And is that because of particulate contamination, or when you say this clean, I mean, you know, people
Yeah, when I say clean room, you got to take it in context to a mine. I mean, we've got an inch of dust on everything. But clean room, yeah, we have clean rooms where the cleaner rooms where we keep our servers, and we actually keep our field control stations that are away from the operations group, and they're basically pressurized, climate-controlled rooms that are a lot cleaner than having a computer sitting under somebody's desk. So that's what I mean. We also have equipment for our SIMS gear that are in actually pressurized control rooms, you know, and we've been moving our stuff in with the SIMS gear to keep it in better shape than what we had before.
Okay, if there are not any more questions, I'd like to have you join me in thanking the panel and the speakers today. They've shown some very good ideas and in real life cases of how major automation projects can be handled and handled successfully with business objectives. So again, thank you very much.